high ticket closing / being an inbound closer. Not too sure what I'm going to make the title of this video, but both of those terminologies are kind of synonymous with the type of business model that I'm going to be talking about today. My name is Josh, and I've worked in a sales agency being its main closer for around 2 years' time, as well as working on my own specific offer for 2 years after that's time. I've gone through and been fortunate enough to coach a couple individuals in the realm of high ticket closing / being an inbound sales rep, and get them placed on opportunities where they've been able to go crush 5-figure deals out of the gate, among other things, and just realistically get into this business model that I've been running for essentially the last 4 or so years of my life. I also want to make it blatantly clear that the only reason I'm kind of putting both of those things in the title is just because that is how it's known as, so that's how people are going to find this video. And I don't personally necessarily really vibe with the whole high ticket closer terminology. You're just a closer or a sales rep, or a closer is just someone who makes sure some sort of monetary transaction happens over the call and money actually swaps hands. Other than that, you're just a salesman who sells higher ticket items. One of the reasons I really don't necessarily vibe with it is just because, as I'm sure that you have seen, if you're looking into this video, I'm sure you've done a little bit of research around the internet. A lot of people will call themselves this a high ticket closer / inbound sales rep when they have no prior experience. Maybe they went through some sort of course, mentorship, or training and are trying to get into that, and that is okay. But I just feel like it's personally overused. Granted, it's the same type of thing where a lot of people will say I'm great at e-commerce or Amazon FBA or these types of different business models, and then they start training people how to do it and teaching people how to do it when they've maybe only ever had one successful Shopify store in their life, and they maybe just broke even on it, didn't even make that much money. But since they have the little 10K marker there, it gets people intrigued and interested, and so then they're able to sell based off of that rapport. And one of the things that I kind of also have an issue with kind of sales and high ticket closing, rather than these other sorts of business models, is that there's no real one-to-one metrics in high ticket sales or being an inbound closer. And what I mean by that is essentially there's no way to realistically guarantee that you or just a sales rep will 100% be successful on any given offer. There's ways to reduce guesswork, like if they've had experience with this type of offer before, if they sold the same type of productized online service, or whatever it is exactly that they're selling. You can reduce guesswork by having them have experience in that, but there's no way to guarantee they'll resonate with the offer. Unlike in e-commerce or Amazon FBA or different business models, you can essentially get down to a T. If I put X dollars in, I will get Y dollars out, which equals Z profit. I've personally sold for offers where I was well above KPIs. I've sold for offers bouncing between 50% to 20% closing rates. I've also sold for offers that I quite literally physically could not sell for, just because either I didn't necessarily vibe with the person maybe I was working for, I just felt like I should not be talking to the candidates I was talking to, and so therefore I physically could not make the sale, because it's not too hard to see past that veil of lack of confidence, as well as, I'm just a good kid. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'd hate to kind of do anything that I felt personally would be disparaging someone else, even if I was kind of required to do that for an opportunity. Granted, while there's no surefire way to 100% make sure that an individual will be successful on any given offer, there is a lot of way to eliminate guesswork, and that's also the beauty in sales. You actually have to put in a lot of effort, be continuously sharpening your sword or just practicing in general to make sure that you're able to operate at a baseline. Sales requires a lot of charisma, being personable, unbridled confidence, as well as being unbreakable. You're going to receive a lot of no's. If we even take, just for example, maybe a baseline bare minimum good commission percentage, not commission percentage, closing rate, that's going to be around maybe 20%, right? For that, if you take 10 calls, sure, you close 2 of them, make however much that would be in commissions. However, you're going to receive 8 no's. And if you receive 2 no's right off the bat, and that breaks your confidence for the rest of your calls, then you're just not simply put going to be able to make any money or close these people, regardless of how good the offer is, if you just cannot hold yourself and have mental fortitude for that. So I originally got into high ticket sales slash being an inbound closer because a mutual friend of friends was talking to me at a gym that we both worked out in the time, senior year of high school. And I was just griping about my normal $10, 17 to 18-year-old kid job working at Topgolf. And I was just being, I don't know, I was just upset for like no reason. Anyways, he said, all right, Josh, how much money did you make working last night at Topgolf? I said like 50, 80 bucks if I'm lucky. He said, what if I told you I made $100 waking up this morning? Which was an absolute bold-faced lie. He was running an e-commerce women's jewelry drop shipping store where he was literally making break-even Steven when it came to actual cost of product, cost of advertisements, and cost of shipping. Like, he was not making any money. He was essentially just putting money through a blender. And so, with that being said, obviously dollar signs are involved, and I didn't have the slightest clue about any of that stuff that I just talked about. So I was like, well, I obviously want to know how the hell you did it. And so from there, we started down our online business route. We started with a couple of different business models, the normal things that everyone goes through: drop shipping, agency, SMMA, things of that nature. And then one day I was in that same gym in the locker room with a separate friend, and Alex calls me and he says, we're doing a phone sales agency. I had never heard of this type of thing before. And I said, sure, 100%, let's go with it. Kind of just thinking it's like, shiny object syndrome, hopping on to the next better thing as soon as you face any level of adversity in the prior thing. And lo and behold, 3 days later, he actually landed us our first client. And that was like a $350 to later $500 Amazon FBA course where we were essentially fielding inbound messages inside of an Instagram DM, as well as getting these people on calls. And then from there, from the DMs coming in from paid advertisements, we would make sure that essentially these people close and cash was kind of collected in hand. From there, a little bit after that, we went to our freshman year of university. We were working through all of our classes and everything, any times that we had. We would be doing essentially sales calls. I was brought on initially to help with follow-ups. I probably had some nights where I would spend like anywhere between 2 to 3 hours going through 200 to 500 plus individuals in a Google Sheet. As type B as I am, and very kind of like live and let be and extroverted, I am very, very, very type A when it comes to anything logistical and school and things of that nature. So I had this huge Google Sheet with all these individuals, all their Instagram handles, as well as probably like a key that had like 10 different color codes of different variation levels of highlightation, depending purely based off of where we had left off in the last conversation. So essentially every maybe 2-ish days, I was messaging about 200 to 300 people minimum over Instagram to follow up, make sure these individuals got on a call with either Alex or then eventually me. I was brought on later to get onto calls, and I gotta say, getting onto calls right at the beginning, as much as like you obviously like you're really uncomfortable, you're nervous or whatever, I felt ecstatic because I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, I was walking out of a dorm building like with a frat mate of the time, like on a call, downselling someone from like the original ticket price because they couldn't afford it, but they really wanted to do it. And so I'm like about to go to a party on a Friday night, and I'm walking these people how to pay through PayPal and then get in contact with the client so that they could get them like physically into like the Kajabi course or whatever it was. Throughout the entirety of our career, we sold Amazon FBA course, an e-commerce course, a social media marketing agency course, done for you e-commerce stores and store management, as well as another Amazon course, slightly different Amazon business model there, a higher ticket SMMA course that actually taught you how to get clients through Upwork, which was very interesting, as well as a mentorship that was a high ticket course / mentorship for women's coaching consulting, basically helping women in the workforce take their high income skills and their values from like their job and be able to turn it into a productized service and then sell it themselves and work for themselves, which is a very unique and fun offer, honestly, to be on, as well as a higher ticket Instagram course and mentorship that would teach people essentially how to build their entire business through their Instagram pages. Now, for these specific courses, mentorship services, whatever we're selling, they started off being around like $300 to $500. Eventually, we got into the $1,000, $2,000 range. And then from there, we really bumped it up and stepped it up from like 2.5 to 15K, 5K. I say all those numbers, like you obviously think that the higher ticket ones are going to be the one making you the most money. But realistically, depending on the commission percentages as well as the volume, I'd probably say some of the more so like 2 to 5K range is actually the offers that I was making the most or the majority of the money for the business in relation to when we were getting up to the more so 10 to 15K offers. That's not just because of like lead flow as well, but also commission percentages. As you get higher up in deal size, commission percentages tend to go down, and as you get lower in deal size, commission percentages goes up. On top of that, for the agency, since we were a sales agency, we'd also charge some sort of retainer, usually bouncing between $1,000 to $2,000, and then we'd take something between 15 to 25% commissions on top of that. And because of that, not everyone wanted to work with a sales agency. They don't want all that headache, or they didn't want to think about basically two different ways that we were getting paid instead of one. And so with that being said, eventually some people started telling us like, hey, we don't want to work with you, but if you'd be able to give us someone who has sales training and would essentially do what you do, but we didn't have to pay them like you did, we'd be ecstatic and we'd make it more than worth your while. And so because of that, and because of obviously also working with all of these individuals, that as soon as you start making money with the business model, you teach people how to do it, and then you essentially make 100% profit margin money. We were like, okay, cool. How do we offer what it is or teach people how we do what we do? And so from there, we took on our first batch of mentee students. We guaranteed them with a gig or the money back, and then we would teach them over a month's time, essentially how to do exactly what it is that we were doing. And then from there, plugging them into opportunities. That was a very, very fun time. I thoroughly enjoyed working with all of those mentorship students. It's probably some of the most fun I've realistically had in the entirety of online business, is making those connections and things like that. But from there, once we started doing that and placing them, we realized that we only ever had so much time on our calendar to be able to teach individuals, to be able to take sales calls, as well as to then from there make sure that they were getting integrated well into that business. And so the next business, and the one that we've been working on, which is our own offer past that, is essentially a brokerage business model, helping individuals get connected with high ticket sales reps / inbound closers. Recapping all that experience that I kind of just went through, it realistically, I know I didn't necessarily give too much of a good timeline there, essentially for like, aside from like the sequence in which things happened, it realistically took us like a year to a year and a half to be making like an actual living wage. And but what I mean by that is like we kept the majority of the money in the business, but like ourselves being paid a couple $1,000s minimum, and essentially I would be able to afford like an apartment, food, whatever else expenses there is as being an adult. And so with that being said, that time, I understand not a lot of people either want to go through that grind phase, or not a lot of people have that much time to put into something like that because of their main gig or their main job that they're actually working like 9 to 5. And I get it. I was fortunate enough to do these types of things when I was going through my first couple of years of college and get that stuff knocked out of the way, do my classes stuff, get that done, and then focus on this type of thing. And so with that being said, that's where these courses and these mentorships come in. Now, I'm not going to essentially vouch for any one of them, but I'm just going to say these are built purely to skip past those phases. Like that grind phase where you're trying to absorb all this free information, put everything together, maybe read through some business books and struggle, fall on your face, run again, fall on your face, run again. That is exactly what these are built for. Not 100% of them are going to work for you. Maybe some of them would work for you, but wouldn't work for others. It's honestly going to come down to figuring out what it is exactly that you want to do. If you want to go through and like shotgun blast people through Instagram, try to land your first offer with no experience, and get into an opportunity, and then from there work your way up the ranks of getting more experience and then going to higher and higher offers from there. 100%. All it takes is one good offer to be able to make you 5 figures plus per month. However, if you want to skate past that, honestly, I just find someone personable that you like to engage with that teaches what it is exactly that you want to do in online business. If you didn't like all the things that I was talking about before for essentially the scope of work that we would be doing, at some times taking anywhere between 8 to 12 calls per day, usually around 30-minute calls. I'm making a couple $100s, if not a couple $1,000 per day. If you're not interested in that, I definitely recommend finding some other business model. You are going to be talking to people a lot, so you do have to get used to that. It does take a fair bit of time really to get used to it. And the main hurdle for me was honestly feeling comfortable with asking people for money. I would essentially, for sake of terminology, whatever, I'd basically crap my huggies every time, on the first 30 calls I had when I had to ask someone for money, just because I felt like it was so weird telling you hey, you told me you want to do this, cool, all right, give me money and I'll help you do it. I just felt like that was the weirdest thing ever to me. My only jobs I'd ever had prior to that was, like I said, working at Topgolf or being a lifeguard, so I just had no experience of asking someone for money. So that's one hurdle you might have to get over. Aside from that, just being comfortable and persuasive. But that is a very, very good skill to be able to nurture and ingrain into yourself, just because it's going to be able to help you in essentially any facet of life, as well as any facet of business. All business needs sales. And so with that being said, I hope this video helped you out. If you have any questions, feel free to click around, reach out to me on any different platforms. I definitely recommend reaching out to me on Twitter. Aside from that, the next video, I'm probably going to be talking about the experience that I had and how I learned how to do high ticket sales / being an inbound closer, just so that you can get a skeletal framework of what exactly that learning process looks like. And then from there, make an even more educated decision if this is something that you would want to go forward with.